Chapter 6 of Autobiography of a Newspaper Girl by Elizabeth L. Banks. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 6 When I Began to Starve in London. I have a conscientious objection to fulfilling people's prophecies about myself when they take it upon themselves to foretell unpleasant happenings. When I was a freckled-faced, red-headed little girl in Wisconsin, one of our neighbors, a Methodist deacon, calling at my home and witnessing an exhibition of the fact that I had a temper to correspond with my hair, put his hand upon my fiery locks and said portentously, "This child will come to some bad end." "That's a story lie," I retorted hotly, shaking my mane free from his hand and eyeing him defiantly. "I won't! I won't!" I have a very keen and lively recollection of the shock and commotion which thereupon ensued upon my showing "such behavior before company," of the early supper that was hastily provided for me, of being escorted to bed ere the sun had gone down, and how I added a rider to my evening prayer. "God bless me and make me a good girl," I prayed fervently, "just to spite old Deacon Jones." When I had lived in London several months, I woke up one summer morning with another prophecy that had been made concerning me ringing in my ears. "You will starve in London." It was the half-pitying, half-threatening prophecy made by the Colonel when less than a year before I had walked into the managing editor's office and suddenly informed him that I was going to London. I had just 2 pence and a halfpenny that morning when I so vividly recalled the Colonel's prophecy. It was all the money I had in the world, and I could see no prospect of getting any more. How I finally got down to a beggarly 2 halfpenny would make too long a story. Suffice it to say that, doing the best I could, I had spent what money I had brought with me and all that I had earned, and had mortgaged the furniture of the flat besides, and that every day I was having a headache, the kind of headache that comes from irregularity in the matter of meals. Then, on that particular morning, I suddenly remembered that it had been prophesied I would starve in London. So while I brushed my hair that had grown darker to match the temper that had become calmer during the years that had started me out in life with a very good weapon against its pitfalls, I determined that it should fare with the prophecy of my dear, good friend the Colonel, as it had fared with that of my old-time enemy the Deacon, and as I looked at myself in the mirror of the mortgaged dressing-table, I exclaimed, "That, too, shall be a lie. I will not starve in London." The sun came streaming through my bedroom window, with its pretty white dimity curtains tied back with blue ribbons. There, on an easy-chair, sunning himself, watching the people and traffic in the street below, sat Judge, my dog, a golden crown of light upon his shaggy head, a highly polished silver collar round his neck, topped by a huge bow of yellow ribbon. On a chair beside him lay the half of a puppy biscuit. On the floor, with towel for tablecloth, were a saucer of milk and a bone, with gristle and meat on both ends of it, by which signs I knew that Judge had eaten what breakfast he wanted and was not hungry. I thanked God for that. If I had ever suspected Judge of being hungry, I would have been capable of going into the street and knocking down any little butcher's boy who refused peaceably to deliver up to me the contents of his wooden meat trough; or, failing that, I might have attempted to forge a check, or have committed any other crime which seemed to promise something for Judge to eat. About 10 o'clock that morning I put on my hat, and fastening Judge's chain to his collar, I called out to Dinah, "Good-bye, Dinah, Judge and I are going out for a walk." As I went out the flat door, there came from the kitchen sounds of the scrubbing and scouring of tins, and Dinah's singing, in her sweet, melodious voice, an old-time darky camp-meeting tune. "Oh, de Judgment Day am rollin' round, rollin', yes, a-rollin'. I hear de trumpet's awful sound, Rollin', yes, a rollin'. Oh, some seeks de Lord, but dey don't seek him right. Rollin', yes, a rollin'. Dey prays in de daytime, but not in de night. Rollin', yes, a rollin'. I laughed as I shut the door upon Dinah and her ecstasy. I had managed my experience of hard-uppedness very well indeed so far, and had tactfully kept the state of my finances from Dinah. How I was to continue the deception longer I did not know, but I had an abiding faith that there must be some way. "Which way, Judge?" I said to my dog when we had got outside the building. I had then, as I have now, a fancy for holding on to Judge's chain and letting him lead me at his will. Judge headed towards the Houses of Parliament, and I followed. Then he turned towards Westminster Bridge, and finally we crossed it. Then we wandered among the streets of Camberwell, where children were playing in front of the small houses. Judge, in all his beauty and splendor, attracted the attention of a group of tiny tots, who immediately gathered round us. I was dressed rather well and stylishly on that occasion, and my appearance did not betray my poverty-stricken condition. To these children, Judge and I were "quality folk" from the West End, walking about Camberwell to gratify our curiosity concerning the doings of the East End folk. One little girl, pretty, though ragged and dirty, interested me greatly. I asked her name and where she lived, and found that her home was in a lodging house with an older sister who did sewing. "If yer ever want any sewing done, lady, the plain kind, me sister'll do it for ye," said the child. "How much money can your sister earn by sewing?" I asked. "About 1 and 6 every day," returned the child. I was about to walk on, when Judge, hearing me say "good bye," automatically put out his right paw to the child to shake, whereupon she seized it, exclaiming, "Oh, lady, please lemme show yer dog to me sister. She ain't never seen no such hanimal, an' he's so cunnin'." So, to please the child, Judge and I climbed up several flights of stairs and into a room where I saw poverty of a different kind from that which I myself was experiencing, different from any that I had ever seen before. A girl of perhaps 22 or 23 sat sewing, and rose to meet her little sister with an exclamation of horror as she saw her visitors. It was a rather absurd situation, and the humorous aspect of it appealed to me. I had been dragged up those stairs by a ragged little London girl to be shown off to her sister as a rich West End lady, with a beautiful dog to amuse a tired working girl. I, with twopence halfpenny, confronting the problem of how to keep from starving in London. The sewing girl dusted off a chair with her apron, bidding me to be seated. The little sister begged that I would make my dog "do tricks for Sister Molly." "Your little sister tells me you do sewing," I said, for the sake of starting conversation. "She says you earn only 1 and 6 a day. Can't you engage in some employment that pays better? It seems so little." I stopped suddenly, and in a half-dazed way remembered that I myself was not earning 1 and 6 a day. "No, miss, I can't do anything else," answered the girl. "There's domestic service," I said innocently. Just why I happened to think of domestic service in connection with the girl I do not know. I talked only for the sake of saying something. I took no particular interest in her. But her face blazed up at the mention of domestic service, and then and there she gave me to understand that she was no "menial." She would rather sew and have her liberty, she said, than be a servant and have none, and as for caps and aprons, did I expect a self-respecting girl to put them on? After that I had nothing to say, and bidding her a hasty "good morning," Judge and I descended the creaking stairs. When I got out in the open air, the humorous side of the thing again appealed to me. I to suggest to others a way of earning their living when I was in such difficulty concerning my own. Now, I thought, if I were that girl, instead of myself, I would have an easier time of it. The thing for her to do is to become a housemaid. Why, if I were a sewing girl, earning only 18 pence a day, I'd jump at the chance of being a servant, and— Then I did jump, as though I were struck. I was struck with an idea. Judge and I had been walking back from Camberwell the way we had gone, and again we were on the edge of Westminster Bridge. I went over to the railing and looked down at Father Thames. Then I stooped down lovingly to pat the head of my pedigreed poodle. He it was who had led me in the way of that idea which was to prevent my fulfilling the Colonel's prophecy that I would starve in London. "Judge," I said, looking him full in the eyes, and taking his paw there on Westminster Bridge, "I'll go out as a housemaid and write it up for the papers, and so I shall get my start in London, and there are better times ahead. And it's your idea, Judge, not mine, for you led me into the way of it. I mustn't put it in the papers just how the thing came about, how I determined I wouldn't fulfill the Colonel's prophecy, and how my dear doggie was commissioned to save me. We can't put it in print just like that yet, old fellow, but one of these days, yes, one of these days, my dog story shall be written. Ha, ha, Judge, we've got it, haven't we? The idea! London's got to give us a living, a decent, comfortable, satisfying one. It's got to give us 3 square meals a day and afternoon tea besides. It's got to give me hats and dresses and theater tickets, and you great wide all-silk ribbons for neckties. It's got to give us rides in hansoms, Judge? And once in a while a drive in the park in a Victoria. You'll like that, Judge, and so will I. Why, Judge, you and I are young, and we love the follies and vanities of the world, and we're going to have some of them. Why shouldn't we, if we earn them? We are going to work for old London honestly and honorably, and old London has got to pay us our wages." I released Judge's paw. He wagged his tail in agreement with me and trotted along beside me on the bridge. When we were nearly across it, I thought I would take a final look at Father Thames, and a sudden inspiration seized me. "Father Thames," I said, leaning far over to look into his very depths, "here's 2 halfpenny for you. With it I'm what they call broke. Without it I'll be penniless and dead broke. And as I'm taking a new start in life today, I think I'll start even. Here's to your next century's scraping, Father Thames, and treasure trove to the monarch then on the English throne." With that I flung all my financial resources into the Thames, taking defiant aim 3 times in succession. 1 penny dropped upon the water, then another, then a halfpenny. Holding tight to Judge, I left Westminster Bridge a dead broke American girl in London, and when I opened the flat door with my latchkey, I called out, "Dinah, come and take Judge. He must be hungry by this time, so give him the bone and the milk he left from breakfast. And oh, Dinah, I've had an accident. I was standing on Westminster Bridge looking into the water, and I dropped all my money into the river. Have you got any money left from your last month's wages, Dinah?" "Oh, Miss Polly, I've done got 7 shillin's, and I ain't got no use for it, and I can len it to yo' and welcome. But oh, Miss Polly, yo' done drop all de money yo' hab into de riber? Did yo' take it all out when you left de flat?" "Yes, Dinah, I took every penny out with me, and I dropped it all into the river," I answered, turning my own eyes, in which shone the light of truth, to her affrighted ones. "But don't worry, Dinah. There's always something to be thankful for. If the amount had been larger it would have been worse, you see, though perhaps if there had been more of it I wouldn't have dropped it. Anyway, I've got to go right out again to a newspaper office. You can use your 7 shillings to buy stores for the kitchen, and I'll pay you back in a day or 2. "Yes, Miss Polly, but oh, Miss Polly, of all the misfortunes that happened to us, it am de wery wust for you to drop yo' money into de riber." But I was off. leaving Dinah to make her lamentations to herself and Judge, who, I was thankful to remember, could not talk English, and tell her the truth about the exact amount of the money I had dropped into the river, and the particular method I took to drop it. I did not borrow bus fare from Dinah because it suited my whim to start even and dead broke with that idea of mine. So I walked to Fleet Street, then turned into Whitefriars Street, and with another turn went into the office of a newspaper that had published 3 short articles of mine at the rate of £1 apiece. I found one of the assistants and asked to see the editor-in-chief. "He can't see you, I know," was the answer. "Why, he's writing 4 articles this very minute." "He can't write 4 articles at once. Even an American editor couldn't do that," I retorted. "But he can, and he's the only man in London that can do it. He's dictating one article to a young woman typist, another to a young man typist, another to a telegraph operator, and the 4th one he's writing himself." "Dear me," I replied. "If he's a man of so many ideas, perhaps, after all, he wouldn't pay any attention to me, for I'm only a woman with one idea. I wanted to tell him about it. I know it's a good one." "What is it? Tell me. I'm acting editor, and if it's anything important, I'll lay it out before him and give you an answer." "My idea is to go out as a servant and write up my experiences as a serial for your paper. Everybody is interested in the servant question. Lots of people want servants and can't get them, and lots of girls are starving in London. Now I propose to advertise and get a situation, and then write my true experiences, without giving any names or addresses, of course, and tell whether or not, in my opinion, it would be a suitable employment for gentlewomen as well as working girls. Now, shall I go out as a servant of your paper?" "What, you? Why, you couldn't get a place to begin with, and if you did, you couldn't do the work. Your idea is not practicable." "Well, I'm going anyway," I answered. "Going where?" "Going out to service, and going to write my experiences, and if you don't want it, I'll find some other editor who does. As a matter of fact, I intend to find such an editor this afternoon." "Wait a minute, will you?" he said, as he left the room. He returned in about 10 minutes. "I've talked your matter over with the editor-in-chief, and he thinks the idea all right, but says you can't do it. He agrees with me that it would make interesting copy if you could do it, but you couldn't get a place." "But if I get a place and write the serial for you, say in 6 installments of 2 columns each, how much will it be worth?" "But we can't guarantee to take things we've never seen and you've never written." "No, that would be unbusinesslike, I confess," I returned. "But let me put it to you this way. If I get a place as domestic servant in London, or in the country near London, and write up my experiences, and you like them and think them suitable for your paper, how much would you pay me?" £20. "All right, I'll do it. You won't hear from me again till I'm somebody's parlour-maid or housemaid. I'll write to you from my situation and tell you how I'm getting on." So the bargain, if bargain it could be termed, was sealed. £20 seemed a large sum of money to me in those days, especially when I multiplied it by 5 and thought of it as $100. That evening at the flat I summed up the situation thus: "I have found a newspaper editor who says that if I can do a thing which he knows I can't do, and then write a series about it in such a way as shall please him, he will publish it and pay me £20. To do the thing I must have enough money to live on for at least a month, and must have cash at once for advertising, buying caps and ribbons, print dress, black dress, collars and cuffs. There is no money in the flat, but enough food on hand, bought with Dinah's money, to last 3 or 4 days, if used very economically. Puzzle, how to get some cash." Then I went to bed with the unsolved puzzle on my mind, and the next morning I knew what I must do. Sell my typewriter. The furniture was mortgaged, the old tin pan which was called a piano was hired, but the typewriter was my own. I had brought it with me to London as a necessary adjunct to my proposed newspaper work. I had grown to love my machine. To me it was not an inanimate but a sentient, living thing. I had dealt tenderly and carefully by it, had oiled and dusted and polished it every morning, and at night time had sometimes lovingly patted it when it had earned for me a $5 bill or a sovereign. When I knew I must sell it, small wonder that I cried over its keyboard. Then, when I had cried, I washed my face, donned my hat, and went out and made a bargain, selling the thing for £12, though it was as bright and capable as when I had bought it for 20. I sent a man to look at it, and he bought it and took it away. Then I was rich, that is, passing rich with £12. I paid Dinah what I owed her, and went out again and negotiated for another typewriter to be bought on the installment plan, paying £3 down and signing an agreement to pay £2 a month afterwards. When I had got through with this somewhat peculiar sort of business transaction, I sat down and admired my own cleverness. I remembered my difficulties at the seminary with even the simplest of mathematical problems, and the prophecy of my teachers that whatever else I might do, I would never become a good business woman. Here again was a prophecy unfulfilled. How little did these instructors know of my capabilities in a business way when the emergency should arise. I woke up that morning without a penny, though I had a typewriter. I went to bed the proud possessor of another typewriter, just as good, and nearly £9. What a deal, to be sure! In the morning a typewriter and no money, then money and no typewriter, and then money and typewriter both. Given my circumstances, who could have done better than I? Buoyant and full of hope and faith that evening, I sat at the old tin pan and played and sang gleefully, while Judge danced about the room with his ruffled paws. Dinah hesitated over the laying of the supper table, and looked at the new typewriter over in the corner. "Done got machine fixed werry quick for this country, which am allus mighty slow, didn't dey, Miss Polly?" she observed. "Yes, Dinah," I answered. "It was done in something of a hurry, and I got some money to-day, and things are looking up." "Glad o' dat," returned Dinah, bustling back to the kitchen. She was under the impression that I had sent the machine out to be repaired and had got it back. I found that a very easy and plausible explanation to make to her, when a man had come to take the first machine away, and another had come apparently to bring it back. I wrote out my advertisement for a situation on the new machine that night, and on August 23rd, 1893, it appeared in the Daily Telegraph. It was a novel kind of advertisement, and brought me 150 answers. In reply to them, I spent about 2 weeks tramping over London, and then came my reward in the shape of an engagement, or rather 2 engagements. Shall I ever forget that starting out into service? How several times I went out the flat door, then flew back again to give Judge just one more pat, and make Dinah renew her oath of allegiance to my dog during my absence. It was agreed that she and Judge were to meet me every evening near a certain pillar box at about 10 o'clock, where I would go nightly to post the letters of the family with whom I had engaged as housemaid. It was in this way that I intended to keep in touch with my little home circle, while I essayed to play the part of maidservant. End of chapter 6.